especially those from out of town and from distance. With the weather we had last night and the roads this morning, I'm glad to see that you've all made it safely. And thank you to those who are live streaming from around the world. Wow, what an incredible thing to say around the world, knowing the impact that this one person has had on all of us, the family, the community, the town of Trent, the diocese, and now around the world. It's hard to imagine the life Mom lived and the sheer numbers of individuals impacted by her love. It was a life well lived, a long, and as we can say, fruitful life. Mom was born in Mimico, Ontario on June 27, 1925. The third of three daughters to Daniel and Catherine Mom, her older sisters being our Aunt Zita and Aunt Margie. Our Aunt Zita, by the way, celebrated her 100th birthday this past summer. The year Mom was born, a pound of coffee cost 50 cents. The world population is 2 billion. GE produced the first light bulb. She lived through the Great Depression, Second World War, the Cold War, and she even lived to see Trump voted out. Yeah, Mom, she wasn't a fan. Tragically, due to childbirth complications, Georgina's mother died 2 weeks after her birth. Her father could not handle bringing up her 2 older sisters and a young baby at the same time. So he asked his sister, Margaret, who was 49 at the time and had no children of her own, to raise our Mom. So as a result, she was brought up alone in small town Trenton, while her 2 big sisters grew up in the big city of Toronto with their dad. She rarely had the opportunity to visit her sisters because of the distance needed to travel that far in those days. Growing up with her Aunt Margaret wasn't easy. She went a tight ship. Mom grew up learning what it was like to live in a household where there was shared cooking, cleaning, and running around, almost like Aunt Margaret was training her to be a strong, independent homemaker, because that's what women generally did. Maybe Aunt Margaret had a premonition that Mom would one day raise her own army. Mom met Dad at an RCAF dance in 1947 when she was 24 and he was 36. They married in June, 2 years later in 49. And exactly 1 year later, Michelle was born. Pretty much every year after that, another Lambert was brought into this world. Think about that, ladies. She was basically pregnant for 15 years. After 9 attempts, they finally realized they had achieved perfection when I was born. And the timing was perfect too, because the doctors actually told her, he's your last. Your birthday days are over. While Dad was serving in the RCAF, they moved as a family to and from Ottawa 4 times. The military was using half of its annual budget pretty much just to relocate the language. By then, moves were becoming too difficult for this family, for this large family. So Dad retired in 1965 at the age of 52, the year I was born. It couldn't have been easy growing up in Mom's generation, and her life didn't get much easier having to raise 10 kids, who for a few years were all in the same house at the same time between the ages of 15 and newborn baby. I remember as a very young kid, my brothers and sisters and I used to love when our parents took us to the beach. Well, Dad loved it. All he had to do was drive and play a few beach games with us. Mom, not so much. She was the one having to make all the lunches, pack all the drinks and food into the coolers, ensure all the kids had their bathing suits and towels. As soon as we got to the beach, all the kids just scurried off, ran into the water, into the dunes. And then when we got out, we got back to our picnic area. There were all of our snacks laid out, the towels waiting for us, and Mom was finally resting on the towel. Taking a deep breath, taking it all in, until it was time to pack it all up again. And get home, clean up the kids, do the wash, start the dinner, do it all over again. But she never complained. Mom's compassion for others started with our family. Whenever any of us were sick, you'd see Mom hovering over top of us with a cold white cloth, a glass of ginger ale for her belly, or a spoonful of ground-up aspirin in sugary water for her headache or fever. She did so much for the 10 of us, but ensured we all did our part too. For me, military boot camp was a walk in the park due to Mom's duties. Being independent and organized, being a leader amongst my peers, not to mention ironing and making my bed to perfection, were just some of the skills she taught me. Around 50 years of age, Mom went to Loyalist College to study nursing. Think about how courageous and impressive that was. Despite being a mother of 10, with all the family obligations, logistical challenges that brought, she was brave enough to follow her goal and achieve intellectual and professional fulfillment in her own right. Something very uncommon in women of her generation, and even more uncommon for someone who already had kids. But Mom had her own mind and believed in her own independence. But Mom had her own mind and believed in her own independence. I'm going to read something from my sister-in-law, Martha, to help explain that point. But as an aside, I received pages upon pages of stories and anecdotes from my brothers and sisters about Mom. So many funny stories, so many poignant memories. So many examples of how Mom cared for us and taught us all how to be decent human beings who respected each other and the world around us. But if I read them all to you, we'll be here all day. So I picked this one from Martha. She writes, even though Mom was from a generation that was very male-dominated, she led her life as a strong, independent, spirited woman. She passed these qualities on to her daughters-in-law, and her grandchildren. After Dave and I got engaged, Mom and I had many conversations, and she always gave the best of advice. She told me not to lose myself, who I am after marriage. This was important to her. Mom told me that she went into nursing so she could be financially independent and have a life of her own within the life she shared with such a big family. This drive towards independence strengthened her relationships with her husband, the children, because she was living a balanced life, mentally, physically, and spiritually. Her boys also learned from this lesson of female independence by respecting and nurturing independence of their wives, daughters, grandchildren in their own family. This and her unconditional love for all the people who joined the Lam family over the years is what I remember the most about Mama Lam. Thank you, Martha, for those kind, lovely words. And so for the next 10 years, after earning her diploma, Mom worked at Trenton Memorial Hospital. That was a long 10 years for us kids, while Dad was working night shifts at the Yukon Lodge and sleeping during the day. It was hush-hush in the house during the days. And although Mom pre-made most meals for Dad, so he could just simply reheat them for us, the days of shepherd's pie and Mom's lasagna. Certainly gonna miss that. Although she pre-made most meals for Dad and reheated for us kids when she had to go to work, once in a while Dad pulled out his chef skills on beans and wine stock. He was very proud of that. As if all this work wasn't enough for one mere mortal, Mom was a prolific community volunteer, including pickup and delivery of Meals on Wheels. And then around the same time she started nursing, she joined the Catholic Women's Center and was eventually elected president for 3 terms. Her devotion to the church and the Catholic faith were unwavering and beyond reproach. Her faith spread wide to the members of the family. Our Sunday church outings generally took up 2 pews of this very church. And all of us boys did a stint as altar boys at some point or another. Many memories of Dave and I sitting back here, following along, Snickers, here and there. And I look over to see Mom, her glaring at me. Smarten up. Here. But Mom was so much more than just a decent, independent Catholic woman. She was funny as hell. Sorry, Father. Our Mom had the best dry, witty sense of humor right up to her dying days, when she continued to make us and her medical staff in the hospital last week. One point in time, the nurse came in when Mom was really unwell, and she asked her a couple of questions just to assess her mental state. And Mom, although struggling to answer, didn't skip a beat and croaked out with a straight face, "Timbuktu." And yes, she was smart, very, very smart. And she was with it to the end, and had a way better memory than me. I don't even remember what I had for breakfast. And Mom, she remembered everyone's birthdays, wedding dates, all the wedding dates, and she kept up with current events and the comings and goings of her very large family. She traveled to Hawaii on her own 2 years after our father died. When she was 83, for heaven's sake, imagine that. Mom also adopted technology. I mean, how many 95-year-olds can whiz around on an iPad with such ease and post and comment on Facebook? Oh my gosh, she even used emojis. And she remained independent, living on her own, in her own apartment until the very end. She even went through a hip replacement from a bad fall in the summer of 2019, which often spells the end for people of her age, but not our mom. She had the fortitude and strength and determination to get through rehab and make it back to the apartment where she continued to live independently. And she didn't complain. I think it's appropriate at this time to thank my two sisters that are here, Suzanne and Michelle, for everything they did. I mean, all the family kicked in when they could. But Suzanne and Michelle really went over and aboard to care for her mother. They were incredible, truly incredible, in helping her continue to live independently in her apartment. On behalf of your 8 siblings, thank you, Suzanne and Michelle. I think I should end this eulogy by returning to my mom's faith once again. She brought great comfort through her life, and it continued to build right to the end. She knew that her time on this earth was coming to pass. She was not afraid of it. In fact, she welcomed it and prayed for it. She had seen everyone on a FaceTime call on Saturday, aside from Mark. Then on Sunday, Mark had the honor of staying the whole day with Mom. And I guess she came alive for him. Well, what an honor. In fact, she seemed to be improving, but I think it was just a last rally so that we, as a family, could all say goodbye to her. That's the last page, I promise. After that, she knew it was time to shut her down. I firmly believe that she was ready, and that she was in God's hands. I'd like to sum up by referring again to the FaceTime on Saturday that I had done with many 8 or 9 family members. I shared the news with Mom about a new baby coming into the family with Josh and Hillary. Mom was simply elated and referred. She referred to the cycle of life. Her time was coming to an end, as another was about